All right, let's talk Miami Dolphins. They've been involved in a lot of news over the past couple of weeks, but there's an under the radar edition. Of course, as we get closer to training camp, we love looking at these, kind of underrated players that the Dolphins picked up. We're talking about a massive steal potentially emerging in Miami. We've got some great data to highlight what I think was a big get for the Dolphins. We'll get to that in just one second. But first, I'm Nick. That is Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, we all know the Miami Dolphins were involved relatively recently at this point with kind of a surprising trade combination thing going on. They then added a tight end. We won't get into all that. We'll talk about a guy they added in terms of a rookie, a cheap young player added to this Dolphins squad that nobody is paying attention to. This kid's kind of unheard of in NFL circles, but folks, I don't think that'll last long. We're talking about Andrew Armstrong, wide receiver out of Arkansas, undrafted free agent to the Miami Dolphins. And I've got a lot to talk about this kid, but let's just go into the data first because the numbers are off the chart. So let's pull up the first chart here. We're looking at Armstrong's analytics, courtesy of PFF last season, his overall offensive grade in blue, and his receiving grade in red. And we compared Andrew Armstrong, he's on the far right of the graph, to 3 first-round wide receivers. We're talking Ted McMillan, we're talking Emeka Egbuka, and Matthew Golden there working left to right. Armstrong, of course, like I said, on the right. And remember, those 3 guys, first-round picks, really good players in college. Andrew Armstrong, undrafted free agent. And if you look at these, this is analytics, right? This isn't raw data or anything like that. We'll get to that in just a second. Just pure unbiased analytics. You can see Ted McMillan looks pretty good. Emeka Egbuka looks pretty good. Matthew Golden, and not quite as good, but still pretty solid. Andrew Armstrong's better than all of them when you look at receiving and overall grade. You can see it on the chart in front of you guys. Absolutely bonkers stuff. Consider this. If Andrew Armstrong was a third-round pick, right, and these other 3 guys were first-round picks, and I showed you this data, you'd say, huge steal for Miami, right? Oh, my goodness. Based on the analytics, they got a great player in the third round compared to these other guys' numbers when they were in the first round. But Armstrong was an undrafted free agent, folks, right? This is a steal of steals. I mean, just based on this data alone, it looks like one of the bigger steals of the entire year. But wait, there's more. Let's go into our next graphic here to highlight some more stuff. This is crazy. I love looking at what I call the little things. I look at drop grade and I look at run blocking grade, right? How consistent are you with your hands? How good of a run blocker are you? Kind of the hidden part of playing receiver. You can see, once again, working left to right, we got drop grade in blue. Higher is better. Better drop grade means fewer drops, and run blocking grade in red. Higher is, again, better means you're a better run blocker. And you can see left to right there, you can see McMillan, good player. Run blocking grade, though, not so good. Same thing with Egbuka, same thing with Golden. Armstrong, though, he's got a better run blocking grade than all these guys. Remember, these are receivers, so their grades aren't going to be off the chart. But the best of these 4 is Andrew Armstrong. How about drop grade? He's got the best, once again, of these 4 guys. And the other 3 guys are first-round picks, top 10 picks, projected to be big-time stars in the National Football League. Once again, if Andrew Armstrong had been drafted in the 3rd or 4th round, then I showed you this data, you would see great steal, good job, great find, high value play. To get this kind of production, to get this kind of analytical performance undrafted is absolutely bonkers and an incredible effort, an incredible job by the Miami Dolphins front office. You could make an argument they probably should have drafted him at the end of the round, at the end of the draft when he was available in the later rounds, but they got him they got him when it mattered most. They got him in the building even when he became undrafted. Now, one of the things that can happen when you look at analytics, and I can see some people raising the question now, is like, well, his analytics may be good, but how about his production? Well, he led the SEC in receiving yards last season. Okay, so how about that for production? He had more receiving yards in the best conference in college football than any other player, led the SEC in receiving 2024. Well, what did he play for? Like a high-flying offense, like a superstar team that won the championship, and they just were loaded with players? Not at all. He played for Arkansas. They were underwhelming. They disappointed. They were not a great team last year. Not a terrible team, not a dumpster fire, but far from an elite team. Certainly not a playoff team. So you can put that to the side. Well, does he not have an NFL frame? Does he not have, the physical tools? He's 6'4", 200 pounds. Sounds like an NFL frame to me, right? Now, look, I'm not saying Andrew Armstrong's a perfect prospect. He's not. He's got plenty of flaws. You can go into the scouting report. We'll talk about some of them. But when you look at the analytics, it's clear he shouldn't have been an undrafted free agent. When you look at his production, led the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, in receiving yards, it's clear he should not have been undrafted. When you look at his physical stature, it's clear he should not have been undrafted. This is the best value we've seen, at least in my opinion, throughout this entire cycle, right? There's all of the time there's guys that slide out of the draft that should have been picked in the 5th round or the 6th round or the 7th round. There's some guys that have draft grades even higher than that, but slide just because the weighting of the draft positions and just things like that. There is no reason that I can find why Andrew Armstrong should have gone undrafted. When you look at his size, his physical gifts, when you look at his production and you look at the analytics and especially the little things, I love looking at the little things. It's clear Andrew Armstrong was one of the biggest finds of the entire rookie class. This was a great addition for Miami. Everyone's focused on the veterans and what's going on at the quarterback, Mike McDaniel in the hot seat. All of that's fair. Top of the headline, we get it. But this is an under the radar addition to this Dolphins squad that I think will have a massive impact. I don't know if it's day one because they have the veteran receivers, of course, with guys like Hill, guys like Waddle. They want to get Achane more involved in the receiving game. We'll see what happens with Darren Waller. I'm personally not expecting much, but again, we'll reserve judgment until he actually shows up. Of course, we look at Malik Washington, another young playmaker added into the mix, going to get more targets. But I look at Andrew Armstrong as a guy who I think, in my opinion, pretty much guaranteed to make this team and probably will have a long-term, big-time impact for this Dolphins squad, eventually becoming a legitimate big play receiver for this offense. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But first, Dolphins fans, in the comment section below, talking to Andrew Armstrong, talking undrafted players. So let me ask you this. Who is the greatest undrafted free agent in Miami Dolphins history? There's a couple very interesting ways you could go with this, but I'm curious where you guys are going to go. I think there's a lot of different ways you go. Old school, new school, different approaches here, but you can only pick one guy. Give us, in your opinion, the greatest undrafted free agent in Miami Dolphins history and put them in the comment section below. And while you're down there, make sure you sign up for our free weekly newsletter via the Substack platform. There's a link in the description box below, 100% free. It's just extra content. In fact, we even highlight the comment of the week. So if you have a great comment, you may see yourself in the newsletter. So make sure you sign up. Again, link in the description box below. But Mize, enough from me. Over to you now. What are your thoughts on this latest news out of Miami?
Yeah, this guy kind of blows you away when you look at what he does on paper, whether it's statistics, whether it's size, whether it's his analytics. He checks all the boxes. And I think the key here is, we go out and we talk about, all right, what was the weakness of Armstrong? What's the thing people talk about? Well, he's a little bit slower than average. And it's not like we're talking a 5-second 40-yard dash. He runs a 4.5, which is, by all accounts, not super fast, but it's not super slow either. And a guy that's 6'4", 202 pounds, he can get up there. He can go after the ball. You talk about, a slow 40 time, which is not that slow. I think it's in the 50th percentile range. You look and what is he good at? All right, he brings a great broad jump and great vertical jump to the equation as well. Very high grades there, 37.5-inch vertical, 10-foot 4-inch broad jump. So the guy's very explosive. He had a good shuttle as well, a 4.1 second shuttle there. So overall, he does a lot of things really good, and he's just like a little bit slower than just the faster receivers. So I think this guy's a pretty good steal for an undrafted player. I truly don't know how he falls as far as he did. I think some people maybe should have tried to, get him just for the fact that he has such great numbers, had such great, production as well. Obviously, we talk about this all the time, and it's something that we usually talk about when we talk about offensive linemen. It's like maybe their technique's ugly, maybe something they do you don't exactly love, but do they get the job done? And by all accounts, when you look at Andrew Armstrong, great name by the way, that this guy, he by all accounts got the job done. Led the SEC in receiving yardage. This is a guy that with the package that he has, athleticness wise, can get the job done at a very high level. So I think that in itself is worth a look. And that's why I think, like you said, Andrew Armstrong is a guy that I really love for this Dolphins team. I hope he can get on the field this year because I think we're going to see someone special. I think he can contribute in whatever, whether it's a small role, whether it eventually gets into a bigger role. But I think getting this guy on the field is paramount because I think there is something to look at when you see a guy like Andrew Armstrong.
Yeah, and you go more into his data and you look more into his background, he just looks better and better. This is a guy who has 37 career collegiate starts. So it's not like a guy who hasn't played a lot of football and there's some, well, can he learn the game? Does he know the game? Does he have a high football IQ? Look, the guy's played a lot of it, right? At a very high level, the highest level, we're talking SEC over the past 2 seasons. He was a transfer kid going from East Texas to A&M. So that's something we really like on this channel. We talk about it all the time. It is really hard to pick up your entire life at one school with one set of friends, coaches, classmates, teachers, all that kind of stuff, and then move your entire life to a completely new town, completely new environment, and excel. That takes a level of maturity, takes a little stick-to-itiveness, a little overcoming adversity. That's exactly what we got here in Andrew Armstrong. Transferred and did very well for Arkansas, was a big-time starter right away for the Razorbacks. This is a guy who, again, was not part of an elite high-flying offense. There was a lot of times where he was one of the main focal points that the opposition was trying to stop, right? This was not a super productive offensive football team last season in the SEC, and despite that, he led the conference in receiving yards. So no matter where you look at it with this kid, he's got just everything you want in terms of a player that can just step up, be a high-value deal. He's mature. He's overcome adversity. He's incredibly productive. People talk about the attributes of like, well, he's a little tight-hipped, right? We don't like the way he comes out of his breaks. He only had one receiving touchdown last year. I mean, the criticisms against him are sort of, they're not invalid, but they're very all over the place. They're sort of, it's almost like they're looking for a flaw with this guy. And every part of his career, since he left high school to go play, he's been viewed very negatively, right? People have underestimated him. He had great size, great physical tools in high school, was not a big recruit, went to East Texas A&M, right? Then at East Texas A&M, he enters the transfer portal after doing some good things. Where does he go? He doesn't get offered by Auburn. He doesn't get offered by Alabama or Texas, right? Or LSU. He has to go to Arkansas. To be totally honest, a second, third tier SEC school. And now we see him overlooked yet again as we went through the NFL draft process. So we're looking at a guy here who every single time he's been doubted, he has excelled. He's exceeded expectations. Love to see that. Now, again, we're not saying he's going to be a day one superstar, but if you look at a long-term addition for this Dolphins offense, and by long-term, it could be, mid-season this year. It could be 1 or 2 years from now. We'll have to wait and see how everything all shakes out. But this was clearly a great find by Miami, and I expect Andrew Armstrong to do big things for the Dolphins going forward.